We often look for betrayal in actions, in the late-night texts, the whispered calls. But the first signs are always in the language, subtle, symbolic, and deeply psychological. When someone begins to speak in euphemisms, especially in the context of a romantic relationship, it is rarely innocent. It is the shadow speaking, a part of the psyche we all carry, but often deny. The shadow is composed of the traits we repress, the truths we fear, the impulses we hide, not only from others, but from ourselves. In relationships, when guilt, temptation, or betrayal begin to surface within someone, they do not always manifest through confessions. More often, they emerge through coded language, vague statements, and gentle half-truths. This is not lying in the traditional sense. It is the unconscious protecting the ego from collapse. When she says, "The shadow, I just need time to think," it is not simply about reflection. It is her psyche retreating from responsibility, crafting a narrative she can live with. It is the self whispering, "You are already halfway out the door, but do not look at it too closely." The words are softened, made palatable. The phrase, "the toll, we're just in different places right now," sounds benign, but listen closer. It is not about space or growth. It is a displacement of emotional presence. The connection has already been severed in her inner world, but she cannot, or will not, name it directly. This process is not always intentional. In fact, that's precisely the point. The shadow operates outside of conscious awareness. She may genuinely believe she is being honest, that she is sparing you pain. But behind those carefully chosen words lies an internal dissonance. She knows somewhere deeper that her loyalty is fading. To speak directly of betrayal would force her to confront who she is becoming, something that her constructed self-image may not be able to tolerate. So she cloaks the truth. The euphemism becomes a shield. "You're such a good person. You deserve someone who really appreciates you." On the surface, it's a compliment. In truth, it is a release of responsibility. It is a way of saying, "I can't give you what you want, but I won't admit that I've already given it to someone else." The psyche crafts these narratives to preserve internal equilibrium. To cheat, to betray, is not just a moral dilemma. It is a psychological rupture. And the mind, rather than rupture, will distort reality, subtly, softly, until the lie becomes bearable. In these moments, language itself becomes symbolic. She is no longer communicating facts. She is externalizing the inner fracture between who she was and who she is becoming. If you are attuned, you will hear the shadow, repressed but powerful, making its presence known. Her tone may remain calm, her words may seem reasonable, but something deeper has shifted. The unconscious always leaks through language, and when someone cannot say directly, "I am no longer loyal," they will find other ways to say it. The euphemism is not confusion. It is not uncertainty. It is a red flag dressed as compassion. The shadow never announces itself clearly. It hints, it suggests, it cloaks its messages in kindness. But the wise listener hears the truth anyway. The persona is the mask we wear to navigate the expectations of society, relationships, and identity. It is the face we craft for others, a construct designed to maintain harmony, acceptance, and function. In intimate relationships, this mask often takes the form of affection, loyalty, and emotional consistency. But the persona is not the whole self. It is a fragment, a socially acceptable adaptation of the inner world. When inner desires begin to conflict with the outer role, the persona begins to crack. She may still say the right things, offer smiles, or perform gestures of closeness, but something subtle shifts beneath the surface. There's a dissonance between what she expresses and what she embodies. You notice it not in grand betrayals, but in small inconsistencies, mechanical affection, hollow eye contact, delayed responses. These are not mere changes in mood. They are signs that the mask is slipping. The true self, pressed beneath the surface by social expectation and personal guilt, begins to leak through the seams. This breakdown isn't necessarily malicious. It's psychological. The human psyche can only tolerate so much contradiction before it starts to fracture. If she is engaging emotionally or physically with someone else, the pressure of maintaining two realities begins to strain her constructed image. She is no longer simply your partner, she is also carrying an internal division. Her outer role no longer matches her inner experience. This tension creates leakage in the persona. She may become defensive over harmless questions, or unexpectedly cold in moments that once brought connection. These aren't mood swings, they're symptoms of a deeper split. Often the person cracking under this pressure doesn't realize what's happening. The persona has been worn so long that she believes it is her. But the unconscious doesn't lie. It resists being buried. What she wants, who she is becoming, what she fears, all of these begin to press through the cracks in behavior, language, and presence. She might overcompensate with exaggerated affection, trying to silence the guilt, or she might become emotionally absent, as though rehearsing a life without you. In either case, the mask no longer fits. The process is painful, because the persona is not inherently false, it is just incomplete. She may have genuinely loved, cared, and committed, but when new desires awaken, when her internal compass shifts, the mask built on yesterday's truth can no longer hold. You sense her presence fading, even if her body remains. She is there, yet not there. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Her words feel scripted. These are signs that the performance is breaking. In such moments, confrontation often yields confusion. She may deny anything is wrong, unaware that her psyche has already begun to outpace her awareness. But for the one who sees clearly, the signs are unmistakable. The persona, once seamless and convincing, now reveals its fractures, and through those fractures, the truth begins to shine, quietly, insistently, and without mercy. Projection is one of the most deceptive yet revealing mechanisms of the psyche. When an individual cannot confront certain truths about themselves, whether guilt, desire, or betrayal, they unconsciously cast these inner contents onto others. In the context of a relationship, this often appears as baseless accusations, sudden suspicion, or emotionally charged claims that seem disconnected from reality. When she begins to accuse you of being distant, unfaithful, or emotionally unavailable, without cause or context, it may not be about you at all. It is likely a confession disguised as blame. This process unfolds beneath conscious awareness. She may truly believe her accusations, because projection allows the mind to externalize what it cannot face internally. If she is emotionally or physically involved elsewhere, the guilt and anxiety associated with this betrayal need an outlet. Rather than accept the dissonance between her values and her actions, the unconscious seeks relief by shifting the blame. You become the untrustworthy one. You become the problem. In reality, she is speaking to her own split, but cannot yet recognize it. Projection functions as a mirror turned outward. The traits, fears, and impulses we cannot integrate into our conscious identity are placed onto someone close, someone safe. In this case, the partner. The more vehement her accusations, the more likely they stem from something unresolved within. When she insists, "You're hiding something," or "You're not honest with me anymore," pay attention to what she might be hiding from herself. The charge, the intensity, is not about objective truth. It's about inner conflict finding a voice. Ironically, projection is a form of self-revelation. In attempting to conceal the truth, the psyche inadvertently exposes it. She may think she is defending herself, but she is in fact confessing, just in reverse. Her words carry the weight of her own duplicity, reframed through the lens of another. This isn't manipulation in the conscious sense. It is psychological protection, a desperate attempt to avoid the shame and self-reckoning that true awareness would demand. You may feel confused, even guilty, under the force of her accusations. That's part of the design. Projection clouds clarity. It rewrites emotional narratives. If you are not grounded, you may start questioning your own reality. But step back, observe the pattern, not just the words. Ask, does this accusation reflect anything I've done, or does it more accurately describe a shift in her behavior, her tone, her presence? To see projection clearly requires emotional detachment, not indifference, but awareness. Do not fight the accusation with equal emotion. Instead, understand what it reveals. She is not confessing out of honesty. She is confessing because her unconscious cannot contain the contradiction any longer. Her soul, in conflict, finds only one available path to make you carry what she cannot bear. In this way, projection is more than a defense mechanism. It is a psychological map pointing toward her unresolved truth. And if you can read it, you'll see that behind every misplaced accusation is a veiled admission. I am the one hiding something. I am the one who has changed. I am the one no longer at peace. The anima represents the feminine principle within the psyche, the inner emotional and intuitive life force that animates a person's capacity for connection, love, and intimacy. In a woman, the anima manifests outwardly in her relationships, shaping how she expresses affection, nurtures bonds, and maintains emotional presence. When the anima is fully engaged in a relationship, it brings warmth, emotional depth, and a felt sense of unity. But when it begins to withdraw, the shift is not only noticeable, it is existential. What once felt alive becomes hollow. What once connected now separates. You do not see this change in one dramatic moment. It begins in subtle silences. She no longer reaches for your hand without thought. Her laughter becomes rarer, and when it arrives, it seems unanchored, distant. Conversation becomes functional, no longer infused with curiosity or shared spirit. The rituals that once created closeness, a look, a phrase, a shared inside joke, begin to vanish without explanation. These are not coincidences or mood fluctuations. They are signs that her anima has withdrawn from the relationship. This retreat often occurs before conscious recognition. She may not know why she feels detached, only that something no longer stirs her. This is the realm of the unconscious, where the soul makes decisions before the mind catches up. The emotional energy that once flowed toward you now turns inward, or more painfully, elsewhere. It is not just that she is distracted, it is that her psychic investment in the relationship has quietly expired. She might still be physically present, still go through the motions, but her spirit is absent. The withdrawal of the anima is the first true departure in a relationship. Everything that follows emotional distance, eventual dishonesty, even infidelity, is a consequence of this initial shift. When a woman's anima no longer finds resonance with the relationship, it seeks expression elsewhere. This does not always mean another person. It might mean a new passion, a new identity, or a return to an older version of herself that predates the relationship. But in many cases, especially when emotional needs go unmet, it manifests in attachment to someone new. The anima does not operate with cruelty. It is not spiteful or vengeful. It is simply honest. It responds to the deepest truths within the soul. And when those truths no longer align with the bond she shares with you, the anima quietly exits. What is left is a shell, a partner who may still speak the right words, but no longer feels them. A woman who may still share space with you, but no longer shares her inner life. The most telling sign of this withdrawal is the absence of vulnerability. She no longer opens up, no longer invites you into her emotional world. Conversations remain on the surface. Conflicts are avoided, not resolved. Intimacy becomes performative, or disappears entirely. And no matter how much effort you apply, you cannot summon her back by force. The anima responds to resonance, not pressure. When its energy is no longer attuned to the relationship, nothing external can restore the connection. Only a return to truth within both of you can determine what remains. When direct honesty becomes too painful or threatening, the unconscious mind begins to speak in symbols. Language becomes abstract, emotions are expressed obliquely, and truth hides behind metaphor. This shift doesn't happen deliberately. It emerges as a psychic defense. When a person can no longer bear to confront or articulate the reality of their internal world, especially in the face of betrayal or guilt, their communication style changes. They stop naming things directly. Instead, they speak through dreams, vague longings, cryptic dissatisfaction, and poetic distance. The clearer the truth becomes within them, the more obscure their words become to you. She might begin saying things like, What on searching for something all better lately. I've been dreaming of being somewhere else. These aren't casual musings. They're emotional codes, indirect expressions of inner conflict. The part of her that once spoke plainly has been overwhelmed by the part that cannot yet bear the consequences of truth. The psyche shields itself with abstraction. She may not even know exactly what she means by these phrases, but they reveal more than she realizes. These symbolic expressions indicate that the story of your relationship is no longer being written in shared language. It is being rewritten, quietly, in her unconscious. This symbolic shift is particularly dangerous because it masquerades as depth. She may seem introspective, even poetic, but what's happening is avoidance dressed in mysticism. Instead of saying, "Withdraw, I don't love you the way I used to," she says, "Withdraw, I feel like I'm changing." Instead of admitting to desires that now lie elsewhere, she speaks of feeling lost or unseen. These words are not meaningless, but they are not rooted in clarity either. They are protective veils that allow her to keep one foot in and one foot out, to remain ambiguous while her inner world drifts away from you. There's a dreamlike quality to her presence now. She may withdraw into fantasy, spend more time imagining different lives, different paths, different versions of herself. When someone begins to speak more about who they might become than who they are with you, they are already halfway gone. This doesn't mean she's lying. It means she's no longer living the relationship consciously. Her truth is being filtered through metaphor, because the direct confrontation with reality would require rupture, either ending the relationship or facing parts of herself she isn't ready to meet. Even her affection, if it remains, becomes symbolic. She might gift you something that doesn't quite make sense, offer gestures that feel mismatched or hollow. These are not signs of deepening love, but signs of confusion, acts of kindness meant to soothe guilt, rather than express closeness. When direct honesty is too costly, symbols become the currency of communication. But symbols by their nature require interpretation. And when a relationship depends on interpretation, rather than mutual clarity, it is no longer grounded in shared truth. It floats in ambiguity, and in that ambiguity, the bond quietly dissolves. When truth begins to hide behind softened words, cracked personas, misplaced blame, withdrawn intimacy, and symbolic speech, the relationship has already begun to unravel. These are not isolated signs. They are the psyche's quiet confessions, revealing what the mouth cannot yet say aloud. To see clearly is not an act of suspicion, but of strength. Stoicism calls us not to cling, but to perceive without illusion. If she says "I want this," in any of its veiled forms, she's not just slipping away, she's already gone in spirit. Your task is not to chase shadows, but to honor the truth and reclaim your clarity.